My name is Rowan Ellis, and I don't usually pick up things that don't belong to me. I'm the kind of guy who minds his business. I don't pry. I don't snoop. I've walked past a wallet lying on a subway seat and let someone else grab it. Not because I didn't care, but because I've always believed some things find their way back to their owners, without my help. But that Thursday morning at the café on 6th Avenue was different, because I picked up a phone. And nothing's been the same since. It was around 7:50 a.m. Still early, just enough time to grab a flat white and a toasted croissant before heading to my freelance editing gig downtown. The cafe was the kind of place that played jazz at a volume you could think through. Wooden floors, chalkboard menus, lots of tall plants and charging sockets. It was familiar. I liked that. I sat at my usual corner table, the one near the frosted window, and pulled out my laptop. That's when I noticed it. A phone wedged between the arm of the chair and the side of the window ledge. An iPhone, newer model, no case, sleek, and very much not mine. I looked around. There were only 5 other people in the cafe. A mom with a stroller, a man in a business suit, a college kid with headphones, a barista singing under her breath behind the counter, and an older woman sketching something into a notepad. No one seemed flustered. No one was pacing around or checking their pockets. I picked it up. The screen lit up automatically. No lock screen image, just a plain black background and the words, "Face ID required." I tilted it slightly to see if I could find a case brand or some initials. Nothing. Then it buzzed. One notification. One new message. "Is it done?" That was it. No name. Just a text. Something about it made my stomach shift. I placed the phone on the table, unsure of what to do. Turning it in at the counter felt like the right thing, but something stopped me. Curiosity. Instinct. I told myself I'd check for more info. Maybe an emergency contact, a clue, a recent call. I pressed the side button. It buzzed again. New message. "You said 9 a.m. sharp. Don't screw this up." Okay, that was intense. This wasn't just someone's lost phone. This was mid-conversation. Important. Urgent. My editor brain started connecting dots. Is it done? You said 9 a.m. sharp. Maybe it was business, a delivery, a deal, or maybe something else. I went to the counter, told the barista I'd found a phone. She offered to keep it behind the counter, but I hesitated. "Actually, do you have a charger? It might help find who owns it." She nodded and handed me a cable. I plugged it in at my table. A few seconds later, it buzzed again. New message. "You're not bailing. You have too much to lose." Now, I was definitely in something I didn't understand. I didn't want to invade privacy, but this wasn't about nosiness anymore. It felt dangerous, like maybe someone was in trouble. I checked the emergency call screen. There was no emergency contact, no medical ID, just a keypad. Another buzz. This time it was an email preview. Subject, final footage. Do not share. From rendelsintercoms.net. I copied the address onto my laptop and searched it. The domain didn't exist. No results. Just blank searches and dead ends. That's when I noticed something strange. The phone had no social media apps, no Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter, no email app, no messages icon either. Just a camera, calendar, calculator, and a hidden folder in utilities. What kind of person wipes their phone clean except for a few basics and still uses it for messages like that? My fingers hovered over the Notes app. I opened it. There was one note. Just one. It read, "If this ends badly, there's a locker at 38th and Grand Central. Key is taped under my desk at 115 W 45th St. You know who to contact. Don't trust H." I leaned back in my chair, heart racing. This wasn't a lost phone. This was a breadcrumb trail. I could have turned it in, walked away, pretended I never saw it. But I didn't, because something about that message felt like a call for help. And maybe It was meant to be found. I packed up, slipped the phone in my coat pocket, and left the cafe. My mind was buzzing. Locker at Grand Central, key under a desk, don't trust H. It was like something out of a film, but it was real. The phone was warm in my pocket. I took the subway up to 45th. The building at 115 West was a nondescript gray office tower, 8 stories, mostly finance companies, a few tech startups. The lobby was quiet. I scanned the directory, Suite 4B, Rendell Solutions, that name. From the email, I pressed the elevator button, rode up. Suite 4B was behind a frosted glass door with no logo. I knocked, no answer. I tried the knob, unlocked. I stepped inside. Empty. Desks, chairs, plants, computer screens off, the hum of an AC unit. I looked around, heart pounding. One desk near the back looked newer, shinier. It had a small silver drawer handle with scuff marks, like someone taped something underneath it often. I knelt down. There it was, a silver locker key, taped with clear packaging tape. I took it, pocketed it, hard in my throat. And then I heard a voice behind me. "Can I help you?" I turned. A man stood in the doorway, wearing a navy suit, tie loosened, briefcase in hand. I straightened. Sorry. I found a phone. Belongs to someone who works here, I was told. He stepped closer. "You're not supposed to be here." "I know, Who are you?" "Rowan Ellis." He stared, and then his expression changed. Just slightly. "You need to leave. Now." I backed toward the door. "I'm serious," he said. "This isn't your business." I turned and walked quickly out the door, down the stairs instead of the elevator, out into the street where I could finally breathe. Was that H? Was I being watched? What the hell had I gotten into? Back home, I locked the door and placed the phone on the kitchen counter like it might explode. I replayed everything. The texts, the note, the man in the suit, the key in my pocket. I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. I had no crime, no names, just messages and instincts. But I had the locker, and I knew where to find it. At 8:45 the next morning, I stood inside Grand Central Station, trying not to look out of place. Commuters flooded past me, oblivious to the storm brewing in my head. I found the lockers near the West Concourse, rows and rows of metal compartments. Locker, guard 1123. The key fit. I turned it slowly. Inside, a plain black folder and a small red USB drive. No name, no labels. I closed the locker, folder in hand, and walked out like I wasn't on the edge of something I didn't understand. At home, I opened it. Inside were printed documents, dozens of them, bank statements, offshore accounts, internal memos, company names I didn't recognize, one that I did, Rendell Solutions, and on the final page, a memo signed by Henry Marks. That's when I knew. The man in the suit, that was H. And whatever was in this folder, someone didn't want it to be found. But now it was mine, and I had a choice: walk away or see it through. I stared at the last page of the memo with the name Henry Marks printed in bold at the bottom. H. It all started making a terrible kind of sense. The missing phone, the hidden note, the urgent messages, the man in the office with the unnerving eyes and polite threats. He wasn't just someone from the company. He was the company. Or worse, the rot in its core. And now I had a folder full of his secrets, offshore accounts, internal memos, falsified contracts, and what looked like bribes to shell companies. If even half of what I held was real, Rendell Solutions wasn't a firm. It was a front. And someone wanted it all buried. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified. A passing siren, a creaking pipe, the low hum of the fridge. By 5 a.m., I had packed the folder and flash drive into a waterproof satchel and hidden it in the back of my closet. Then I went to work. Not my usual freelance editing jobs, something deeper. I started making calls to contacts, journalists, old classmates, anyone I vaguely trusted with connections in media or law. Most didn't answer. One did. Her name was Juliet Carr, an old friend from NYU, now working for an investigative journalism group based in Brooklyn. We hadn't spoken in nearly 6 years. She picked up on the second ring. "Rowan Ellis," she said, voice curious. "What made you crawl out of the woodwork?" "I found something," I said, "and I think it's going to blow up a very big, very dirty company." There was a pause, then calmly, "Where are you?" I met Juliet at a diner in Clinton Hill. She wore a faded leather jacket and had the same sharp gray eyes I remembered from campus, the ones that didn't miss anything. I slid the folder across the table between our scrambled eggs and coffees. She flipped through it quietly. Every few pages, her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Jesus," she muttered. "This is a gold mine." I nodded. "It was in a locker at Grand Central. I found a phone in a café. It led me to all this." "You just found it?" "I swear." She leaned back, her fingers drumming against the folder. "This could bring Rendell Solutions down," she said. "And if what's on that USB backs it up?" She looked at me seriously. "You know they'll come after you, right?" I nodded slowly. They already started. By that afternoon, Juliet had her team verifying the documents and digging into the metadata on the USB. It was encrypted, but not too well. Within hours, they unlocked video footage of boardroom meetings, covert recordings of phone calls, and emails detailing what could only be called corporate fraud on a cinematic scale. There was even a time-stamped audio file with a voice I recognized instantly, Henry Marks. "She's getting nervous. If she leaks anything, we pull the plug. Quietly, accidents happen." So the phone didn't belong to just anyone. It belonged to someone inside, a whistleblower. Someone who risked everything to hide this information in plain sight, and trusted that someone might be decent enough to follow the trail. That someone turned out to be me. Juliet's team worked fast. They crafted an exposé. 2,000 words of fire and facts, legal coverage, anonymized the data trail until they needed to name names. Then they published it on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. The timing wasn't lost on me. That had been the deadline in the text messages. "You said 9 a.m. sharp. Don't screw this up." Maybe that message wasn't pressure. Maybe it was a desperate hope that the right person would follow through. And I had. The article exploded. By noon, it was trending on Twitter. By 3 p.m., Rendell Solutions issued a statement saying they were reviewing the claims. By 7 p.m., the NYPD Financial Crimes Unit opened a formal investigation into Henry Marks and several executives. But it wasn't over, because that evening, someone broke into my apartment. They didn't take anything, didn't leave a mess. But the door had been picked. A chair was slightly moved. The satchel in the closet had been unzipped and left open. They wanted me to know. A warning. I called Juliet. She didn't sound surprised. "They'll try to intimidate you, but they won't go further. Not now. It's too public, too loud." I hung up and exhaled slowly, still shaking. 3 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. "I'm the one you've been protecting. Meet me if you want the full story." Attached was a location pin, Battery Park, 6 p.m., public, smart. I almost didn't go, but some part of me needed to. Not for the story, not even for closure, for her. The person who hid a life's worth of evidence in a phone, a note, a locker, and counted on someone like me to pick it up. She arrived at 6:03, late 30s, pale blue coat, sunglasses, hair tucked under a wool beanie. She looked around cautiously before walking toward the bench I sat on. "You're Rowan?" she asked. I nodded. "And you're—" She gave a half smile. "Rachel Lang. I used to be a senior analyst at Rendell until I found out what Henry was doing. You risked everything." "I lost everything," she said. "My job, my security, my partner, When I refused to stay quiet, they turned on me. Her voice wavered. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go to the press without proof, so I planted the trail, hoping someone random would follow it. No ties, no past. She looked at me. I thought maybe that way it could still matter, and it did. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You could have just vanished, but you didn't. She nodded. I had to know the truth still mattered to someone. We sat in silence. Birds overhead, the rustle of wind in winter trees, the sound of something broken beginning to mend. I'm leaving New York, she said, but I'll keep watching. From a distance. I didn't ask where she was going. Some things are better left unstated. Thank you, she said softly, then walked away. That night I walked home with a strange clarity in my chest. I'd always thought of myself as an ordinary man, quiet, simple, not the kind of guy who stumbles into secrets or exposes fraud or meets whistleblowers in parks. But sometimes the world finds you. Sometimes you look down and a phone in a cafe becomes a map, a secret becomes a purpose, and maybe, just maybe, doing the right thing, even once, is enough to change something far beyond you. Maybe it's not about being extraordinary. Maybe it's just about being willing to listen, to act, to care. My name is Rowan Ellis, and I don't usually pick up things that don't belong to me. But I did, and I'd do it again. Thank you for listening to The Story Voice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you've got a story you think the world needs to hear, drop it in the comments. I might just tell it next. Until then, keep listening and keep feeling.